when letting go became the only way forward. For years, the company believed holding on was strength, protecting systems, preserving workflows, defending decisions that once delivered success. Letting go felt reckless, something you did only after failure forced your hand. But this time, failure never arrived. What arrived instead was something far more dangerous: stagnation. Everything still worked. Customers stayed. Revenue held. Processes ran like clockwork. And yet, momentum quietly faded. Innovation slowed. Teams spent more time maintaining than creating. The company wasn't collapsing. It was settling. And in a world that rewards movement, settling is a beginning of decline. To understand why letting go became inevitable, we have to return to the early signs. Self-fatigue inside teams. Fewer bold proposals. Roadmaps filled with optimizations instead of exploration. The organization had become excellent at protecting what existed, and increasingly uncomfortable imagining what didn't. Leadership sensed it before the data confirmed it. Meetings grew repetitive. The same ideas resurfaced in different forms. Risks were framed defensively. Growth projections assumed continuity instead of change. The company had optimized itself into stability, and stability had quietly turned into inertia. Then came the realization no one wanted to voice. The systems they were protecting were no longer aligned with where the market was going. Customers didn't need more refinement. They needed flexibility, speed, freedom, and the structures that once delivered reliability now stood in the way of all three. This is where the reveal begins. Because the breakthrough didn't come from adding something new. It came from recognizing that progress sometimes demands subtraction, the courage to release what once worked so something better can finally emerge. And once that truth surfaced, holding on was no longer an option. The idea of letting go unsettled everyone. These systems weren't just technical assets. They were symbols of success. They represented years of effort, countless decisions, and a track record that proved the company knew what it was doing. Removing them felt like erasing history. The reveal deepened. Internal reviews exposed how deeply the old structures shaped behavior. Teams designed around constraints instead of possibilities. Innovation was filtered through compatibility checks. Every idea carried the same question: how do we make this fit what already exists? The system wasn't just limiting the product. It was shaping the company's imagination. Still, resistance remained strong. Engineers warned that dismantling core components could introduce instability. Product leaders feared alienating loyal customers. Operations teams highlighted dependencies woven so tightly they seemed impossible to unravel. And leadership faced a painful truth: there was no way to let go without disruption. The conflict intensified when early experiments revealed just how much the company had been holding itself back. In controlled tests, removing a single legacy constraint unlocked faster workflows, clearer experiences, and unexpected creativity from users. But those same tests also exposed fragility beneath the surface. Performance wavered. Systems designed to rely on old assumptions struggled to adapt. Letting go created opportunity and risk in equal measure. The emotional peak arrived during a strategic review. Projections showed that maintaining the current system would preserve stability in the short term, but steadily erode relevance. Meanwhile, a full release of constraints carried immediate risk, but offered long-term growth potential. The choice wasn't between safe and risky. It was between slow decline and deliberate disruption. And that realization changed the tone of the conversation. Because the company understood something it had avoided for too long. Holding on wasn't protecting them anymore. It was preventing them from becoming what the future demanded. Letting go wasn't a loss. It was an opening. And once that door cracked, there was no going back. Once the door opened, the weight of the decision became impossible to ignore. Letting go was no longer a philosophical debate. It was an operational reality. Every legacy system, every protected workflow, every assumption baked into the company's foundation now had to be questioned. The conflict escalated immediately. Teams uncovered dependencies no one remembered approving. Systems relied on behaviors that no longer reflected how customers worked. Entire processes existed solely to support tools that were now candidates for removal. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became. The company hadn't just built products over time, it had layered them, one era on top of another, without ever clearing the ground beneath. Tension rose as timelines collided. Some leaders pushed for a gradual unwind, arguing that customers deserve continuity. Others warned that half measures would only prolong pain. Engineers flagged risks that couldn't be mitigated incrementally. Designers feared breaking experiences users depended on. Every path forward carried consequences, and none preserved comfort. The emotional peak formed during a system-wide simulation. The team modeled what would happen if they removed several core constraints at once. The minimum required to unlock real flexibility. The results were stark. In the short term, instability surged. Certain processes failed outright. Performance dipped below acceptable thresholds. But beyond the turbulence, something else appeared. Clarity. With the old layers stripped away, the system revealed a simpler, more direct structure underneath, one that could be rebuilt faster, scale cleaner, and adapt more naturally to change. The simulation didn't just show risk, it showed possibility. That moment reframed the entire conflict. The chaos wasn't evidence they were wrong. It was evidence they were finally touching the truth of the system. The instability wasn't a warning to stop. It was the cost of moving forward after years of avoidance. Silence filled the room as the implications settled. Letting go wouldn't feel like progress at first. It would feel like loss, like uncertainty, like stepping backward to move ahead. But the alternative, clinging to structures that no longer serve anyone, now felt far more dangerous. The company stood at its breaking point, not because it was failing, but because it was finally ready to change. They let go, not recklessly and not all at once, but with resolve shaped by everything they'd uncovered. Legacy systems were retired. Constraints once treated as sacred were dismantled. Processes designed for a different era were replaced with structures built for motion, not preservation. The transition was uncomfortable. Short-term instability tested patience. Teams adjusted to unfamiliar workflows. Customers noticed changes and asked questions. But beneath the surface, something fundamental shifted. The company stopped fighting its own momentum. Energy once trapped in maintenance flowed back into creation. This was the climax. As the old weight fell away, the product transformed. Flexibility replaced rigidity. Speed replaced hesitation. New ideas moved from concept to reality without colliding with outdated assumptions. What once felt risky now felt inevitable. The future the company had been postponing finally had room to arrive. In the resolution, the lesson was unmistakable. Progress isn't always about addition. Sometimes it's about release. Letting go isn't failure, it's recognition. Recognition that growth demands space. And space only comes when you stop protecting what no longer fits. The company didn't lose its identity by letting go. It rediscovered it, because the only way forward in the end was the courage to release the past and build something lighter, faster, and ready for what comes next. Sometimes, the strongest move is the one that frees your hands. Subscribe to join the journey. When